Hi, good evening. I'm Dietmar Winsker. Thank you for attending this webinar. I called it Where Physics Meets Biology, and I'm just going to give a very brief introduction, so don't worry, this is not about heavy physics or heavy biology, but my background, as you know, is mainly in technology, or many of you would know, and in the last 13 years, I've picked up the odd thing about biology and in conjunction with the Bemer at least. Now, I started it like this. I had a look at physics because that's my background, and I had a look at mechanics, electricity, chemistry, and hydraulics. And you find that in physics, everything is pretty deterministic. What that means is we've got formulas, we can determine things, and the formulas are pretty exact representations of the reality out there. Biology is a little bit different. It is very stochastic, which means that there are a lot of variables. It is very complex. You do not always get the same answer when you do certain experiments or certain studies. That is also one of the reasons why it is so difficult in biology to make a 100% sure diagnosis. So, for the medical guys, it is very difficult. And it's really only since the unraveling of the human genome and the discovery of the DNA molecule some time ago in the 50s by Crick and I've now forgotten the second researcher for which they got a Nobel Prize. It is only since those days that we can really call biology a science, because biology was always cluttered with classifications, with groupings, with um, if you look at the names of botany, zoology, etc. But if we go to mechanics very shortly, then mechanics is ruled by Newton's laws. You might know them, you might not know them. It's not important now. What I'm just trying to point out to you is that there are certain physical laws that determine mechanics, such as the way we move, such as the way our joints are actually operating, and how the muscles are attached and have a leveraging and a pivot point and stuff like that. It is very mechanical. The whole skeleton is really the structure that keeps our bodies together, onto which tissue is attached, like muscles and what are they called? Tendons and things like that. And that's all I wanted to say about mechanics for the moment. The other thing that we find in physics that is pretty deterministic is Ohm's law. In other words, the relationship between current and resistance and voltage. And of course, at a bit more advanced level, Maxwell equations. Maxwell's equations, which really determine the interaction of electric fields and magnetic fields. And our body is governed by at least these two laws to a very large extent. Our nervous system relies on electricity and obeys all these natural laws of electricity. The same with our brain, and our brain is probably the most complex, um, what can I call it? The most complex entity in this universe. And I'm not exaggerating, I mean that. Because if you go into the details of how neurons connect, how they fire, and you study a little bit, even at a superficial level, and I will not claim that I studied it in any real depth from a physiological point of view, the brain is just amazing, amazing. And that is you in a way also. But ions are electrically charged particles that obey, especially the Maxwellian equations, so that ions, who are electrically charged atoms and molecules, move around the body, and all the exchange at cellular level, and of course further, but at cellular level and at neuron level, that's where these things happen. These ions are being pumped in and out in certain ratios, at certain speeds, at certain concentrations. And if you look at all that in detail, it is absolutely amazing. Another thing, of course, that is very obvious in our body is the electric potential that sits across the membrane of each single cell, and they can even measure it today. It is around about 90 millivolts for a healthy cell. And this voltage plays a very important role in the iron pumping, and that again determines how well any organ or tissue is working in our bodies. So much just very briefly on electricity. Chemistry is, of course, the driver of biology. And there are two major laws, which are, of course, physics laws. The conservation of mass, in other words, when you get two components reacting with each other in a chemical way, the mass will always be maintained. It doesn't matter if the product in the end is a gas and a new substance from two substances that come together. Um, and the other one is the conservation of energy, that all the energy that is being used in the body is being converted, and there are some losses and so on. So that's all I wanted to say, that chemistry um, is very predominant in our bodies. And at cellular level, the researchers of today are really still unraveling very basic things that happen at cellular level. For example, the cells in our pancreas that are producing the insulin and other active agents, our immune system that works entirely on chemistry, because it can recognize a bacteria or any invader from outside, be it a splinter of wood or a virus. It recognizes them chemically. And the body does all its regulation of hormones, of chemistry going in and out of certain places. Everything is regulated by means of chemistry. And of course, all that involves energy. And there's also, of course, a lot of energy that we have to supply to the body. And we do that through the nutrition that we eat, the nutritious food, and oxygen, and of course, water, because water is, in a way, the sort of main solvent for all the chemistry. Now, that sounds maybe all very complicated. But if we look at mechanics, electricity, chemistry, then we see all those components are inherent in our bodies and, in fact, keep us going. These laws of physics. And the energy that we require to do all these things, we get out of these tiny little generators, here depicted in green. They are extremely small. They sit inside the cells, and cells themselves are rather small in the sort of order of magnitude of maybe, um, yeah, a couple of nanometers. It's very small. That's millionth of a meter. And inside there, you get mitochondria. And these mitochondria themselves have little channels. And in those channels are these little power generators. Enough about that. But that energy that these little generators generate from oxygen and nutrients in a very complex chemical process that involves a lot of electrical interaction, with those little generators, we produce all the energy a human being needs. It's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. There's just a model of the molecule there on the left. And we produce about body weight of ATP in an average 24-hour day. And that is the energy our body lives off. Now, hydraulics is the other thing that I put in here, which is another subsection of physics. It's about fluid flow. And specifically, I put it in here because it determines fluid flow in pipes. And really, our circulation, our blood circulation, consisting of the heart being the pump and the arterioles and the smaller arterioles, and right down to the capillaries and back through the veins again, are determined by these physics laws that hold for piping. Now, of course, there is a big difference between a pipe that has a big diameter and a small pipe that has maybe the diameter of an injection needle. And if it gets even smaller, if we are talking fractions of a millimeter or even thousandths of a millimeter in diameter, these laws are very specific. And what these laws tell us, without you having to go into detail, is that the heart cannot really pump the blood through those tiny little pipes, those little arterioles, and the capillary system. And for that, it requires what I call here vasomotion. And vasomotion is simply when the heart is pumping the blood further downstream in the ever smaller pipe diameters will have to be pushed forward by contraction and dilation of the blood vessels, so that the blood, with its oxygen and with its nutrients and other components, hormones, etc., will flow through the blood and be exchanged at the level of the capillaries at cellular level so that the ATP can be produced. So again, these few things that I mentioned now as an example of physics are extremely important for our body to function so that the biology of our organism is doing its thing. Now, on the microcirculation, I just want to point out to you that in our body, in this blood circulatory system, 75% of all the blood vessels are smaller than a fifth of a millimeter. And that is really tiny. And it will go right down at capillary level to about 5 to 7 thousandths of a millimeter. Now you know how small a millimeter is. So to think that the blood can get through all this is amazing. And if you put all these blood vessels end to end, we're talking about 120,000 kilometers of blood vessel. The poor heart, as an ordinary hydraulic pump, could not possibly get the blood through there. So we need the vasomotion. The vasomotion is absolutely essential to get the oxygen and the nutrients to the cell, to remove them for energy production, and the waste products and the CO2 has to be transported back into the capillary and then into the venal system, back to the heart and back to the lungs. And that is really that circulation that takes place 24 hours a day, 24/7. And this system has to work well for us to what we call to enjoy good health. If that system is impaired in any way, then we already have a very, very big chance of having dysfunctions of various tissues, organs, etc. Now, this autorhythmic motion of the smallest blood vessels, which we call vasomotion, physics now determined through our Dr. Klopp, who did the investigations at the Berlin Institute for Microcirculation, and he found out a very, very interesting phenomenon, a phenomenon that was medically unknown before, and that is that the larger of the smallest blood vessels, we are talking here of about maybe 120 micron, that is about 100,000th of a millimeter diameter. These, you can see it over here, have a very slow vasomotion. In other words, the dilation and contraction is at a very leisurely pace, while the smaller calibers move at a much, much smaller or higher rate of dilation and contraction. And the capillaries don't have that mechanism at all. What is significant about that picture is that these superimposed regulating dilation and contraction efforts that are done completely by self-regulation in the body deteriorate if your body does not get enough oxygen and nutrients, because then it will not get enough ATP, and ATP will impair the self-regulation. And this is part of the self-regulation. So I don't want to make a long story about it, but I think what you must understand from a physics point of view is there in your body are automatic rhythmic dilations and contractions that are different for different diameters of blood vessel. But now we're talking blood vessels smaller than a fifth of a millimeter. And it is by that means that the oxygen rich blood, the nutrient rich blood gets to the cells, the exchange can take place, the waste products and the CO2 gets back into the bloodstream and gets cleaned out later in the liver and other organs. And that is where all these things come together. Now, that may have been a bit of a different approach for some of you who know the Bemer quite well. And I wanted to do this for people who are maybe just a little bit more inclined to look at the scientific side, to the physics side, to the biology side. Now we can say, well, that's all very nice. How does all that fit together? But what does that mean practically for us? Well, it comes together in our biggest health issues. Our health issues that all of us have is we would like to maintain good health. And if we should lose our good health due to a bacterial infection, a viral infection, an accident, or stress, or whatever, we would like to regenerate as quickly as we can. Amazingly enough, the biology of our bodies can regenerate very quickly, but what is essential is oxygen and nutrients and rest, and the self-regulation has to function, and all that requires ATP, and this ATP again comes from proper circulation. Another thing where we have a big health issue is, of course, chronic ailments. And the Bemer provides amazing relief in chronic ailments. In fact, it is so unbelievable, in inverted commas, that many people are highly skeptical. And I understand why. And the question is, of course, when we say our health issues are maintenance, quick regeneration, and relief of chronic ailments, can anything be done on these things? Well, the biggest medical care problem in the Western world, from the United States to South Africa to Brazil to Japan, is really chronic ailments are on the increase in every Western nation. Chronic illnesses also start at an ever younger age. And there's an increase in what medics call multimorbidity in the elderly. That means they don't just have one chronic ailment, they have lots of chronic ailments. And that, of course, causes, amongst other things, a lot of pain. And if pain is chronic, it is very debilitating in your day-to-day work. It causes emotional problems, of course. But the things that are maybe the worst is that the physical problems now will affect the organs, the vascular system, the immune system. So it's a bit of a downhill spiral if we cannot get a handle on it. And of course, in today's world also, another medical care problem is the stress factors and how do we maintain our performance. The word that was never heard of 50 years ago was burnout. Today, every second person seems to suffer from burnout, and nobody knows exactly what it is, except that we're losing our mental and physical performance. We are highly stressed out, and stress also implies constricted blood vessels. And so, in many ways, our biology is affected by these physical things that happen to our organs, our vascular system, the immune system, and the stress constricting our blood vessels. So is there anything we can do? You know, biology is so difficult because it really started from extracting active ingredients from plants. And if you listen to any National Geographic or Discovery program on television where they are looking at jungle environments and they are looking at the Aboriginal people living there, then you will, in every Aboriginal setting, find that the people know exactly what the plants can do, positive or negative. can use it for poison, can use it for hundreds of ailments. And that is, of course, how our treatment also started. But we are always, because our mindset is geared this way, because medicine is developed this way, we're always looking for the next new pill. And the next new pill does not seem to be the answer, because we have got fantastic technology. The pharmaceutical companies spend a lot of money on research and do all sorts of things. And the pills come at a price, and the price is negative side effects. And for every pill, there is a negative side effect. Can we beat sickness with the drugs alone, with the medication? In a way, we have lifestyle choices, and many people do that these days. They go to gyms, they eat a lot of extra vitamins, they do all sorts of things in their lifestyles that can assist in beating off ailments and so on. And of course, when we have a problem, we run off to medical practitioners. Are they the only answer? Well, one has to be careful here what I'm saying now, but medical practitioners do not have all the answers. Diagnosis is something that they alone can do, and that's understandable because diagnosis is extremely difficult because you would have to know literally thousands of symptoms in different combinations. And that is why we have so many specialists also, because there's no single human being who could understand and remember all those interacting symptoms. But there are other options. And lifestyle is one of them, as we said just now. But there are also more and more alternatives today. Now, I know that there is a lot of fake alternative medicine, if you even want to call it medicine, or treatments. And of course, we often with the Bemer get lumped into this. I can promise you, on the physics side, on the chemistry side, the mechanics, the electricity side, the hydraulic side, we know exactly what the Bemer does. And we also know that it has no negative side effects. Now, that in itself is already remarkable. But what is more remarkable is how easy it is to use it. You just lie on a mat. There is an interaction that comes out of the mat that is really governed by the Maxwellian equations, which is governed by Ohm's law, if you like, which is governed by something very simple, and it stimulates the vasomotion. It stimulates the vasomotion in a very particular way, like you would stimulate the swinging of a children's swing, because if you don't push it, then it will never act like a pendulum. So you will have to give it a kickstart every now and then. Now, the body does that in a healthy body, and in a young body, it does that completely on its own. But the older we get, the more stressful we live, the more this ability of self-regulation in the vasomotion area, amongst other things, is impaired. So if you could have a treatment like that, that has no negative side effects, that you could use at home, and everyone can use it at home, um, there are very, very few situations where you have to watch out. In other words, contraindications, only really two. I'll mention them later. But most of you who are watching probably know what they are. And this is what this Bemer does. The Bemer is really the place where physics meets biology in this following way. It's a very, very simple little graph or slide, if you like. To be healthy, to enjoy vitality, mental and physical performance is what we all want. The amazing thing about biology and organisms like ourselves is that we have a self-healing ability. There's no doubt about that. It is the body that is doing the healing, not the medical profession, not the Bemer for that matter. We all try in various ways of enhancing the ability of the body to sort its problem out. Now, the Bemer does that by stimulating the microcirculation, which, as I said before, improves the essential supply of oxygen and nutrients and other chemistry, and the removal mechanisms for the cells. So if you can stimulate the microcirculation, those small little pipes where the blood has to flow through that are smaller than a fifth of a millimeter, then that is what we need. And this is the supply and removal mechanism for cells. If that is all working, those little rotating engines, one of which I showed you there schematically, improve the energy production at cellular level, and that means that the chemistry inside the cells now proceeds at a greater effectiveness. In fact, it is what it should be. Because when you were born, and if we're not talking about genetic defects or accidents or things like that, when you were born, your body knows exactly how to operate this biology. It is programmed in the DNA, and for most of the time, it works very, very well. But this chemistry is essential to work properly, and it does that mainly through ions, which are influenced by electric fields. Now, this improved energy production ensures that all the organs, all the tissue can do what it is meant to do. Your liver, your spleen, your brain, your eyes, your sense of hearing, your sense of taste, your digestion, your blood circulation, your heart beating, your lung operations. Everything is regulated, some of it consciously, but much of it that I mentioned now unconsciously. The body does it, and it does it electrically and chemically. And through that regulation process, every part in our body can work mechanically as well. So our joints don't hurt, they function. Our muscles don't hurt, they function. If the chemistry isn't right and we've got a lot of acidity in the muscles, which we call muscle soreness after unusual exercise, then the body will regulate that away. And it can do it without pills. The pills might help, but there will always be a negative side effect somewhere, especially if you take it for many, many months or years. So this is the very simple cycle where physics meets biology, and the Bemer does exactly this. So what does it do? Let's just look at these orange numbers there on the left. It improves this vasomotion, this dilation and contraction. On the earlier Bemers, it was 19% improvement. We get a 27% improvement with the latest Bemer design based on research done in Germany, and it came out in 2010. And I just want to focus on these because that is really what we are promoting these days. Improve vasomotion 27%. If we have more open capillaries, there is more blood flow, there is more interchange of the beneficial stuff to the cells and the removal of the waste products. But we need more open capillaries, a 29% increase, a 31% increase in the backstream in the veins. That is essential for a number of reasons. Just take it from me for the moment that it is a very, very important thing to happen. And 31% increase is tremendous. 29% improvement in oxygen extraction. What that means is the oxygen that is available in your bloodstream actually does get extracted. You don't exhale it again the next time you breathe out. So a 29% improvement in oxygen extraction actually means there is more oxygen for the cells to do their job. There is more ATP being produced. There is more energy. There is more self-regulation. There's a better chance for self-healing. And this ATP production increase is about 18%. I think that's a printing error because I know it also increased. That may be my mistake. But in any case, the improvement is stupendous and very significant. Now, what does all that mean? This improved vasomotion, improved oxygen extraction, improved waste removal at bloodstream level, more ATP production, a better immune system, and self-regulation. What does that mean? Well, it means this. You will have more vitality. even under stressful situations. You will regenerate much faster from unusual sport activity, from maybe surgery. There will be faster healing of wounds, naturally incurring wounds, when you hurt yourself or burn yourself. We've seen it over and over and over. There's faster healing also of surgical wounds. Our bodies can now do what they are meant to do, and they're keeping us in an optimum state of health. And if it is as easy as lying down, then why are we not, more of us, using it? In the late 1900s, 1998, somewhere there, um, the medical practitioner user study showed that after only about 6 weeks, 65% of people were ailment free. That is so big a number, that's 2/3, that again, it makes it medically unbelievable because we're not used to numbers like that. 23% said there's an improvement and 12% said it's unchanged. But you can see there in the background, these numbers 78, 14, and 8%, those are the same figures after 1 year. If we treat people for 1 year, 78% got rid of their ailment. Wow. That includes chronic ailments. That includes multimorbidity ailments even. 14% said, yes, it's improved somewhat, and 8% said it's unchanged. But this means it's also a time-dependent process. And the longer you've got your chronic ailment, for example, the longer it might take in terms of Bemer treatment. You would also have to comply and use the Bemer every single day, seeing that it has no negative side effect, seeing that it cannot harm you in any way, and seeing that it is as easy as lying down on a mat for 8 to 20 minutes, then, it's a no-brainer to at least try it out, even if you're skeptical. But let me show you what they've done here with certain medication. This curve down there, the horizontal is days. It starts off at 0, of course, and then 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, etc. And they used a certain medication for a certain condition. And the blue there, control A, means they have used the medication and the person has improved in a percentage that is given on the vertical axis. And those are the two lower lines over here, control A medication, control B medication. And control B has medication plus some physical therapy, like physiotherapy or massage, okay? So that is what we've got. So we've got a 5 to 10% improvement, and that's all very nice. Now we use the Bemer. The Bemer on its own is these black dots that are hidden over here, and we get a tremendous improvement, as you can see. That is Bemer therapy. Bemer plus medication is B, which is the little dot. It's also hidden in here. And in the end, we've got the Bemer plus medication plus physical, which is C, which are these little squares. The point of this whole curve is that you can see when we use the Bemer plus all the other things, we get a slight improvement. But I think the significance here is to see how much more effective the Bemer is in this particular condition when compared to the medication on its own. If you use the medication plus the Bemer, then you get another jump. Why would that be? Well, the reason is simply this. If your blood vessel is, or your blood circulation is working properly and your blood vessels are open, then the active ingredient of your medication can actually get to the point where it is meant to do its work. And because most of it will get there, the dosage that you can apply can be a lot less. And that is in fact what most medical practitioners who use the Bemer in conjunction with conventional medical drugs, etc., find that they can prescribe much lower doses for almost any drug and any ailment. So the success rate of the Bemer treatment is really amazing. If you look at the horizontal axis here, again, it's just in a different format if you like. The percentage improvement is on the vertical, the timeline is on the horizontal. That the orange one is the one for the free of complaints. More and more people become free of their complaints. And more people, or less and less people, in fact, still have a problem. So, the people who get rid of their ailments, the longer they use it, they have a 70% chance that after 6 weeks about, they don't have it anymore. And the people who don't seem to have any effect will eventually, the longer they use it, see the benefit, first gradually and then in a more significant way. And this is not just a placebo thing that you believe in. It is based on science, it is based on physics, and it works on animals. And you cannot placebo animals, I'm sure. So, in summary, I just want to tell you, for healthy and active people, to maintain our health, the Bemer is essential. It increases our well being, vitality, and joy of life. We get older. Yes, of course, we get older, but we stay younger in terms of our performance. It's the most cost effective means of preventing sickness, staying healthy, and improving our body's self regulation ability and self healing ability. But of course, the Bemer can also be used for the ill, the people who suffer from ailments and pain and I don't know what. And the support of all self regulating parameters that improve the self healing is what the Bemer does. It improves the microcirculation, the oxygen supply, the ATP production. Accelerated healing will be observed. The immune system will be improved because it works on the chemistry as well. There are no negative side effects, and it is compatible with every other medical therapy. And for athletes, it's just as significant because it improves performance. How? More oxygen extraction, faster regeneration and healing when you do get injured. And sport injuries are very, very frequent today because our athletes are really running on the limit the whole time. Energy saving warm up. It's a little thing, but it helps a lot in competition. Even the prevention of sports injuries because the body is just much more uh, supple and can do more things. And reduction of recovery time after injury. Many of sports teams, sports like rugby, possibly American football. I see we've got some American attendance as well. So, you can use it in any sport. And it's approved by the International Olympic Committee since 2004 already. And here's the thing, and that's, I will close now. Every time you use the Bemer, there's an improvement. It doesn't matter if you feel it or not. You must know at microcirculatory level, your vasomotion will improve, the chemistry will improve, your, let me say, hydraulics will improve, your mechanical, skeletal, joint, muscular system will improve, and it will improve through the microcirculation, the oxygenation, the ATP production, the self regulation. That's all. That's all the Bemer does. But the result is physical and mental performance improvement, vitality, quality of life, and good health. And isn't that what we want? But it requires a bit of a new way of thinking, a new way of thinking about our health. We're living in an age where there are breakthroughs from unexpected corners all the time. And here we've got to think different about our health. You and I are responsible for our health, and the Bemer opens up a new way of healthy living for all of us. No clutter, no issues, easy to use. It would be great if we could have a Bemer in every home, and I'm convinced it'll happen. So join the Bemer world. Bemer physical vascular therapy is a fact of life today. And I understand if you hear this for the first time that you're skeptical, and that's fine. But try it out. Maybe you can rent it. You don't have to buy one right away. Just rent it and try it out and see the results for yourself. But give it a chance. If you've been suffering from chronic ailments for many, many months or years, it might take a bit of time, but you will feel the difference very quickly. And the feeling is not a placebo effect. It could be, there's no doubt about it, but the Bemer does what it does from a physics point of view. Like it or not, believe it or not, it happens. And then, of course, if you are satisfied, you can always get your own Bemer, and then everyone at home can use it. So I want you to contact your nearest business partner in the Bemer business, or if you haven't got anybody, then just send us an email at info@bemer.co.za.